All right, let's begin with the latest on what is happening with COVID-19 in the country. So the latest in the new daily cases is that it's crossed 130,000 all over India, and the vaccine shortage story continues to unravel in various forms. In fact, 47 out of 118 private vaccination centers were not functioning in Mumbai this morning. That number increased towards the evening, and by the end of the day, most vaccine centers, at least in this city, were out of supplies. There are some reports that a lack of doses will be supplied tonight, but we don't really know. This is not just a Mumbai story anymore. We are seeing vaccine shortages being reported from all across the country, including Noida, including Bihar, and various other centers which are saying that we've run out of vaccine supplies and are waiting for new stocks to come in. Meanwhile, let's give you a sense of what the latest numbers are looking like that have come earlier this evening. Maharashtra has reported a little over 58,000 cases, fresh new daily cases, that is. Mumbai around 9,200, and Delhi continues to spike in their new daily case numbers with 8,521 cases reported this evening. The politics is also still ongoing with a tussle between Home Minister Amit Shah and Congress leader Rahul Gandhi, who wrote a letter to Prime Minister Modi asking him to open the vaccination drive for everyone and halt exports immediately. Meanwhile, the Home Minister has rubbished the news of vaccine shortages and said that the centre has distributed adequately to all the states. Another important update before I get to the big discussion is that Johnson & Johnson has asked to start a clinical study of its single-dose Janssen COVID-19 vaccine in India. They will be approaching the DCGI with this very soon. Everyone's very excited about the J&J vaccine dose because it's a single dose, and that means probably that you can cover more people. So those were all the COVID updates for today, but I want to come to the big focus that we're highlighting on the show, and I think it's important to talk about what the resurgence, the second wave of COVID-19 is doing to the futures, hopes, aspirations and prospects of a large number of young Indians on the threshold of their careers and their futures and their lives. The COVID-19 is threatening to disrupt board exams again, a second year in the road. Remember, it was the same situation last year in March, April, and we find ourselves sailing in the same boat once again. It's not just 10th and 12th board exams. There are several important entrance exams which have either been cancelled, moved online or postponed, and we don't know when they will take place. So imagine the lack of people, the lakhs of students and their families in limbo right now, who are not sure how to plan the next few months. These are important examinations which set the basis for a lot of future decisions and career decisions, academic choices, etc. And that is the conundrum that we are facing right now. So a few important questions we should ask about this. Has there been any clear assessment in the last 1 year of how COVID-19 is actually impacting academic performance? Have we undertaken that process as a country, or did we just hope that post-November everything would get back to normal and expected a second wave never to come? Is it fair to expose students to physical exams right now when cases are at a record high? And this really is the big question as petitions are being filed to postpone or cancel 10th and 12th board exams, saying that students just don't feel safe. Have we failed to find an alternative, safe and fair method of ensuring that there's no disruption even 1 year after the COVID-19 saga has started? And I think one of the most important things, do we really know whether this online learning that we've been going through in the last 1 year has widened the gap between the haves and the have-nots? Have a lot of people, a lot of children just been left out because they don't have access to online device, online schooling of quality, or even internet connections? These are serious questions that we must talk about this evening. And joining me are Bikkrama Daulet Singh, MD of Central Square Foundation, and Meeta Sengupta, Education Strategist. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us today. Mr. Singh, I just want your opening remarks on the biggest question in front of us, and really the most immediate decision that students, parents and state authorities of various states and boards have to make. Should we have board exams coming up in the next few weeks in a physical form?
Yeah, Tamanna, I think exams are an important challenge, but I think I want to answer this by first even focusing on the challenge around what school closure has done on learning. In fact, one of the bigger questions you raised has been answered. I think there has been a definitive study from Azim Premji Foundation. We tried to analyze the impact of school closure on learnings, and what it tells us is that nearly 90% of children, a lot of these primary school students, have actually lost a very specific key ability in language and maths over the last 1 year. And this is, these are skills like reading with comprehension, which really, impact children's learning levels, as they sort of progress through the school system. And so I think school closures and the impact on learning is serious. Many state governments, as over 10, I think what is not often recognized is that more than 10 state governments actually in some combination did open schools over the last several months. And they recognize this impact on learning. And in fact, if you look a little bit outside India, many developing countries actually opened schools in the last 1 year. So you look at Vietnam or South Africa or Kenya, across these countries, they got anything between 25 to 120 days of schooling in the last academic year. So really, I think, the impact on learning is the question we should be really focusing on. And in terms of the impact on health, I think we can look at, countries in the developed world.
Mr. Singh, we will come to the impact of learning. We will come to the impact of learning. And honestly, I agree with you. I think that is the bigger issue. That is the bigger issue because it impacts a number of more students than just those who have to give their 10th and 12th board exams.
Yes.
But I want to start with what's happening with the board exams and with competitive entrance exams because that's in the now and here. There are several people possibly watching this show who want to get some perspective on what to do next. Look at the conundrum. Either you expose yourself to COVID-19 and bring all of that harm to yourself, or you're looking at another year possibly gone.
Yeah. So look, I've been tracking. I think a lot of precautions have been announced, and I believe that CBSE is increasing the number of centers by 40 to 50%. And I think if we look outside India, in countries like UK and Germany, which open school systems in a significant way, the data is not showing us that actually the number of infections among children, teachers, and families is no different than the larger population. So a lot of this, I think, is in a way fair. And I think, of course, it's down to individual choice and trade-offs. But I think one needs to sort of see in some ways and the risk associated for younger people versus taking these exams.
I just want to go through a list of some cases which have broken out in educational institutions in the last few days. So in Maharashtra, 300 school students tested positive for COVID-19 in 2 districts. Out of these, 229 were in a single hostel. In Telangana, 100 students across 7 schools tested positive. In Haryana, 54 students of a Karnal school tested positive. In Uttarakhand, one area was declared as a restricted zone after 12 people tested positive. In Kashmir, 50 COVID cases have been reported across 2 schools. Meeta Sengupta, the concern is that you are going to create clusters. And I know the very logical question will be that don't these clusters and these concerns emerge when there are political rallies or when there are large religious functions? Why does it happen only for schools and students? But it is a tough choice to make, isn't it, for students and parents? And frankly, it's not even a choice.
Absolutely right. Frankly, it's not even a choice. Bikkrama, you spoke about trade-offs. You have to be able to afford that trade-off. And if you're not well off, you don't even have the option of affording that trade-off. If the system has said there will be an exam, as a parent, very often you're forced to send your child into very dangerous conditions. And this is a question of saying 1 year versus life. And 1 year of what? Not 1 year of learning, 1 year of proof of learning. I mean, is there only one chance in life to prove that you have learned something or you're competent or able to do something? Absolutely not. You will get many chances to prove yourself over and over again. So I really do not understand at this point of time. 1 month ago, the situation was different. But at this point of time, when the new viruses, the new mutations have come in, the new numbers have come in, and the numbers are climbing, I do not understand why the CBSE is insistent on the 10th and the 12th exams, and I want to separate the two. Because I want to point out, I want to remind everybody that through 2011 to about 2017-18, the class 10 exam was not a board exam. It was an internally assessed exam. And we do have the option, because class 10 pre-boards have already happened, and that's an internal exam that is done with a great deal of rigor. So we do have the option of saying no to the class 10 exam, for example, based on precedent. 7-8 years, everybody moved along fine without it. Now come to the class 12 exam, and if I have a minute, I would like to talk about the class 12 exam and the purpose of that exam. With your permission, Tamanna? We have two things that are new,
yes,
right?
please go ahead.
Thank you. We have the new education policy that has declared that you do not have only one choice or one chance. So the class 12 exam itself has been diluted in terms of being the only high stakes exam to go to your next destination. In your next destination, if you make a wrong choice, you can change streams. That has changed. Also, the new assessment thing that has come in the new education policy, and just yesterday or today it was announced that they will launch that exam just this year already, which could be an entrance exam to university. Now, class 12 is not supposed to be an exam that stops you from doing what you do. The class 12 exam is supposed to progress you. So now you have these alternatives in place. And if the alternatives can be done in a perfect manner, in a more personalized manner. So for example, if they're SAT-like and you can have 4 or 6 of those sessions, if you can have a walk-in session where each time, and this happens in professional courses all the time, each time a student walks in, just like you booked a vaccination, you booked an exam time, you click on a number, a new exam is generated for you. We have the technology for that. You can create socially distanced, supervised examinations in libraries, in exam centers, wherever, in dispensaries even. There are many ways of doing it.
I want to ask, I get that point, but, I want to ask that why didn't we think of all of this in the last 1 year? What really is making me wonder where the planning was. So we had this whole situation last year, March, April 2020. I can understand no one knew what was going on. This whole conundrum was on. Let's figure out alternative methods. And then the cases just started receding. And then we were like, hey, everything is fine. So what were the boards doing? What were the state education ministries doing? What was the central education ministry doing all of this time? Meeta, you want to take that?
I can start it off because I do think that we did get a little complacent, but I think the complacency is not just this 1 year. Building examination and assessment capacity takes 4 to 5 to 7 years of hard work. And the ability to design the perfect set of questions so that you can have an question bank large enough to personally generate a walk-in question mark, that's a lot of work in understanding what is assessment, what is the purpose of assessment, how do you design a question, how can you design an alternate question that is objectively the same level as another. That takes 5 to 7 years of work. And that work, we have to admit, has started very, very late in our country. We are 2 or 3 or maybe 4 years into a 7 to 10 year learning for ourselves program. We are running very late on that. So innovation in assessment capacity, building assessment capacity that is more than just administering exams. That entire science of assessment is being built now in our country. And this old lag in our assessment science is what is costing us now. This is why we are stuck in the position we are now. So even if they were rushing it, even if they were pushing the professionals, it takes its time to build that capacity. And right now we are where we are.
Mr. Singh, what do you make of the point that we find ourselves in this situation once again where you actually have to debate health, wellness, and possibly, getting infected by a disease that could turn deadly for not you, but in your family members, versus losing out 1 year. Do you think the question also needs to be looked from the point of view of what happens next in this student's journey, their next set of academic choices, their next set of admissions, and then so on and so forth to their future career paths?
Yeah, and Tamanna, I really think we need to look at the impact on the rest of the children. There are 250 million children in India's school system. Nearly one out of two households in India has a child going to school. And I think we really need to start preparing in a way to getting a more significant academic year for these children in the coming year. And I think in terms of what Meeta said about building capacity and implementing reforms of the national education policy, in fact, I feel the next 12 to 18 months are critical as the government is in fact looking at rolling out some critical reforms associated with the national education policy. One of the key foremost among them is actually a mission around foundational learning called Nipun Bharat, which will actually ensure that we remediate all children that have fallen behind during COVID and actually work towards getting all children to acquire foundational learning skills by 2025. These are critical building blocks for all children in this country. And I think we really need to talk about the larger set of children and because ultimately they are the demographic dividend for this country in the next 10 to 15 years.
Can I add to that, Tamanna?
I also want to address. Yes, go ahead, Meeta. And then I just want to move to another very important point which goes beyond board exams. Yes, Meeta.
Just one other thing, we have to recognize that given the very large number of dropouts in our country historically, this Nipun Bharat as a remedial program is coming in as a crisis, but that crisis has existed for the poor in our country since forever. So I am hoping that this crisis actually forces us not only to understand the assessment lag and not only to understand the learning lag, but feed and serve both these needs. The crisis is making it urgent for us. Look at us today. We really never want to be in this situation ever again.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to focus on a point that Mr. Singh raised as well, which is how inequities have perhaps widened because of what we have experienced in the last 1 year. So India managed to move to online schooling or digital modes of schooling fairly quickly, but it was patchy. So some kids got access to online schooling, and whether it really works, whether it's as good as regular schooling, well, that debate is up there. A lot of people believe that, the whole experience of being in school is a very big part of the education. But then we also have to agree that there are a lot of children who just did not get the same access. Mr. Singh, my concern is, are you going to have a whole generation of Indians who are going to slip back down the ladder because they didn't get the chances that others got because of COVID-19? First it was 1 year, now it's possibly looking like a whole second year. Who right now has a date and a timeline before when kids can go back to school full time?
Yes, you're absolutely right. I think that's why I feel we need to look at eventually opening schools, hopefully when this new COVID wave recedes. I think there is already in India a large proportion of children, nearly half the children, do not acquire a critical skill of reading with comprehension by age 8. And we need to ensure that in some sense that this mission around foundation learning reduces that shortfall. And I guess because all research tells us that if a child does not learn to read by age 8, his or her learning trajectory just flattens. So that's why I think we need to take very definitive action as schools open, hopefully post-summer, to spend maybe something between 60 to 100 days to remediate students, to make up for the learning loss, and then slowly transition them back into their grades. Otherwise, I think it will have lasting impacts on the life trajectory of these children.
Yeah, Meeta, if you can come in on that are we facing the possibility of a whole generation that will, I hope not, but could get left behind, whose dreams and aspirations could get squashed because they just didn't have the same access as everyone else? There will, of course, be a set of students for whom skipping 1 year, 2 years will not matter in the larger scheme of things. But then there will be those for who it will be the difference between make or break.
And this is why you're absolutely right. this is why we need to have this remedial thing, not just for 1 year. We need to have it as part of your lifelong education. At 25, when you suddenly realize you missed the bus and you're terribly depressed and you say, I could never make it again, you should have those vocational opportunities. You should have those opportunities to go into a community college, a network of community colleges, for example, where you can say, I am going to retrain myself as a nurse. And as a nurse, I can retrain myself as a doctor. This hopelessness is not something that we should allow. And we need institutional solutions to create not just catch-up learning for 1 year or 1 year extended to 3 years, that over the next 3 years you catch up. You should be able to do this catching up over your entire lifetime. At age 35, you realize you're a very good tailor. You should be able to go into a business school run by a community college, and you should be able to train yourself in learning accountancy and managing your stock and managing your materials and managing your people. You need to have that access. Then this kind of training is something we already do. Doctors retrain all the time, surgeons retrain all the time. You have all your IT people retrain all the time because of obsolescence. So why is it that the rich people and the rich professions are getting these retraining lifelong opportunities, but the poor professions or the vocations are not getting these lifelong opportunities to say, I can pick up my life anytime I want to? I have had a lag in terms of learning. I have had a lag in terms of assessment. I know a lot of it was because of COVID. I cannot blame anybody. I cannot blame the system. Yes, you can blame the system if it's not there for you institutionally when you are ready. And that kind of support should be available to anybody and everybody. A 70-year-old should be able to start a story reading business.
It would also, yeah. And it would help a lot with gender equality as well. For, girls who get left behind because of familial responsibilities and because of many other situations that they face. By the way, UNICEF estimates over 25 crore Indian children have been negatively impacted because of the closure of schools. I want to speak about one more aspect, and I think that's an important one, of what it means for a student at whichever stage to now be out of school and have access to a school environment, a learning environment only through a screen for one whole year, and possibly looking at this going on for another full academic year, at least 6 to 8 months. Mr. Singh, if you would want to take this first, what are the side effects that we are potentially looking at?
Yeah, I think, we need to look at this from the lens of children who are studying in public schools, government schools, and low-income schools. I think a lot of very high-income private schools have, in a sense, tried to completely replicate the learning process, through small groups. I don't think this was possible in the public system. The government, in fact, I think has across the country, many state governments rolled out many meaningful digital learning programs, but I think there are just inherent challenges in India around device ownership, connectivity, that even the best program, the most well-meaning program, reached at most 25% of the children on a regular basis. A lot of these children in government schools are accessing content on a mobile phone. It's not on a tablet or on a laptop. So I really feel that we need to work towards reopening schools, in this academic year. This is not, no instruction that's delivered in that mode can replace classroom instruction. If anything, it can be an add-on and it can be additive. So I think we need to accept that, and we need to work as the COVID pandemic recedes post-summer to open schools, and of course take all the precautions. We can learn a lot from already 10 state governments have experimented open schools, and I think we can learn from those models. But we need to get children back in schools. I think it's an important priority, a national priority.
Okay. It's a national priority to get children back to school, says Mr. Singh. It's interesting because if you look at what in the United States, and of course very different circumstances, but the Biden administration has taken this up as a priority, which is why they also made vaccine access universal, because they wanted kids back in schools. They wanted that opportunity for all of their citizens. Ms. Sengupta, just that question to you, and I think this goes beyond the rich-poor divide, because any child from any strata of society has had to have a full academic year of pretty much being by themselves with a screen and not being able to talk to their peers, not being able to absorb so much more information than you do just beyond, the straight up instruction model. How will that impact children and their education if this goes on possibly for another year?
Absolutely. So far, yes, we have been talking about academic learning, and there's a lot of non-academic learning, a lot of social learning, a lot of collaboration that happens in schools. We learn to take knocks, we learn to be hurt by somebody, we learn to have our friends console us when things go wrong, we learn to pick ourselves up again. All of these are critical life skills, these are critical employability skills, these are skills for survival, really. And in a way, we are losing out on that set of survival skills. And that's a big loss. There's a small gain to be had in evolving into a much more man-machine kind of person. We have evolved excellent skills in talking to each other online. We have been able to create so much time because we don't commute to school. We have been able to make sure that there is no such thing as the last bench because everybody is the same and is equal. And some students have reported that this is actually good for them because teachers are paying more attention to every student. They're really working hard for every student. But the good really is not as good as we want it to be because we are trying to replicate the old world. We are still in denial about the classroom existing. And in that, I will slightly differ from Bikkrama because he says we need to get kids back to the classroom. The classroom concept, the four walls concept has crumbled, and it may not come back even for one more year after this. It may be a whole 3-year thing like the Spanish pandemic was. And in that, we need to create hybrid models because we do need to, and I agree with Bikkrama on this one, we do need to create these social congregations in the old way. In smaller groups maybe, but they will have to come back to some sort of a hub so that they learn how to engage with each other as humans. Because if as humans we lose our human survival skills, we are then transforming into something that technology is leading us into, and where technology, etc., is not a place that we want to go. We need to be able to control it a little bit more. And I think that is a very deep discussion. It's a bigger discussion, but the real discussion here is about the connect that we have as humans with learning, with the emotional engagement with people who inspire us, our teachers, and people who support us, and our ability to become support structures for others. And that is the bigger conversation we need to be having.
Absolutely. This is an important set of conversations that I think we will continue to have right here on ET Now and the India Development Debate from various aspects. You have to think of the emotional impact on kids of various ages. You have to also look at the point that at higher levels of education, it's not easy to have one gap year and then 2 gap years. There are many families who need their kids to finish their education, start working, start earning and bring in money into the family. You can't perhaps just sit around and say there's always next year. Not everyone can afford that, luxury in a sense. So we need to delve into this topic much more deeply, and we'll continue to do that on the India Development Debate. But for now, I want to thank Mr. Singh and Meeta Sengupta for joining us on the show.